Holy smokes, did Sapporo and the surrounding areas get absolutely destroyed by that snowstorm last weekend, eh, folks? Wow, I don't know if it was on the news where you are, but holy jumping. We had a massive snowfall again. So far in January, over 100 centimeters. I think I read it was 122 centimeters. Don't quote me on that exact number. Definitely over 100 centimeters have fallen on us this January, which makes this the snowiest January in 21 years. Now, there were some reports coming out. There was a bit of confusion at the start about that 100 centimeter number because lots of people in the foreign community, lots of the Japanese people I know were saying, wow, we got 100 centimeters in 12 hours. Well, that's not the case if that's the information you heard. The fact of the matter is the 100 centimeter stat comes from the total accumulation in Sapporo in January. Still, a crazy snowy winter for sure, and the most we've had in 21 years here in Sapporo. Lots of areas of Hokkaido have actually already had more snow so far this winter, just near the end of January, than they've had in many winters past, complete winters past. So it is a snowy one out there. But this storm this past weekend, that one started from very early Sunday morning, the wee hours, and it went right through to mid-afternoon Sunday with a bit more waiting for us when we all woke up on Monday morning as well. An absolutely amazing storm. Wasn't quite a blizzard, as the wind wasn't really up, but my lord, it was dumping. More than 54 centimeters over that 12 hours fell. Pretty wild. But what's kind of crazy about that is it actually wasn't the only big snowfall in those few days. In the previous 4 days here in Ishikari, well, if you remember last Thursday, we had another 40 or 50 centimeter dump last Thursday here in Ishikari. That didn't happen down south in Sapporo. Thank goodness. Things should be twice as chaotic as they are now. And, well, actually, I think that 40, 50 centimeter dump, that was the day after. Immediately after I recorded episode 126 of the Cycling Hokkaido podcast, where I said that this winter hasn't been that bad. Oh man, I actually think I said something similar last year as well, right before we got destroyed with snow in February. Folks, weather forecasting is clearly not my strong point. But as I was saying, kind of after that big storm, some areas of Hokkaido have already passed their annual snowfall average, and it's still just January. But again, for us here in Sapporo, it's been the snowiest January in 21 years. And what an effect it had on the city. Wow. Now, I've said this before, but the weather in Ishikari and the weather in Sapporo are very different. So when we get a 50 centimeter dump in Ishikari, it's not that big a deal. In the grand scheme of life in Hokkaido, nothing is really disrupted if Ishikari gets dumped on, right? But when 50 centimeters falls smack in the middle of Sapporo and the surrounding cities, major problems occur. So let's get into what life has been like after one of the biggest storms in decades. First of all, the shoveling. The shoveling was pretty much an all-day event here on Sunday for us. But before we got down to business, my wife and I watched Alex Honnold climb Taipei 101. Holy smokes. Did you guys watch that show? It was great and I loved it. But did you have sweaty palms through most of it as well? I couldn't stop. At times you're like going, stop it, get away from the edge. But it was great fun to watch, and I was 100% confident he was going to be in no danger at all. I actually kind of wondered if that might have been an easier climb for him than the stuff he usually does. It looked like there was a lot of things to hold on to, where sometimes if he's up a sheer rock face, there's, less to hold on to. But anyway, it was great fun watching that, even if it was kind of panic inducing at times. But anyway, while we were watching that show, we knew the snow was piling up outside, but it was Sunday, right? So we were in no rush. So we took our time getting down to business. And although we did take a break from the show to help a guy who got his car stuck out in the street in front of our house, my wife was looking out the window. She's like, "Oh, come on, we got to go help this guy." I was like, "But I've been waiting for this Skyscraper live show." She's like, "No, come on." We're like, "Oh, God." So we did the Good Samaritan thing and sacrificed a half hour of the show to go dig this poor guy out. But with just a little digging, he was free. Folks, maybe just a little reminder here. If you are driving around in Hokkaido in winter, it might be an idea to keep a small shovel in the car just in case you have to dig yourself out. There's a little 1 coin hint for you. A little 1 coin hint for free. Anyways, after Skyscraper Live, we got geared up and went out to dig out. And the first shoveling session, I gotta say, it wasn't awful. It was Japao, that gorgeous Japanese powder snow. And that stuff, to be honest, is not that difficult to move. Now, sure, there was a lot of it, and it was still snowing most of the time. But, I don't know, it was also kind of a fun day out shoveling because all of our neighbors were also out shoveling. So there was actually this kind of cool community vibe going on, kind of like we're all in this together. So, hey, let's have a laugh as well as we all go through Snowmageddon. So we get the first session done. And then there's a kind of, to be honest, it's all clear. It's mostly clear. It's still snowing, but the worst of it's over. But there's a feeling of dread that kind of everybody in the neighborhood had, because we now know that after all this hard work we've put in, we know the snowplow is going to come and just bury everybody's driveway again. And sure enough, it came and buried us all again at about 3 p.m. So the neighborhood was all back outside at about the same time again. Well, kind of like when all the Who's in Whoville come all out at the same time to sing Christmas songs in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Kind of like that. Everybody just knew it was time to head back out to shovel away all the damage the snowplow did. But I got to say, for that second session, there was considerably more groaning going on. But hey, we got it all cleared. Everything's tidy and cars can get through the neighborhood and all that kind of jazz. No biggie. But I got to say, folks, while the storm demanded a lot of physical labor from locals here in Hokkaido, it seemed to me it put a whole lot of mental stress on tourists and travelers. Did you see that some 7,000 people slept in Chitose Airport thanks to flight cancellations and JR stoppages? Wow, holy smokes. I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing was moving from Sunday morning. So many flights were canceled. I think I read that, 56 flights were grounded due to the storm? I also heard that some flights were actually canceled because there was nobody to board them. People couldn't even get to the airport. That's how disruptive this storm was. I mean, just everything got shut down. Of course, again, JR was stopped. That's Japan Rail. That was all shut down. Buses were all stopped. Some things were going again by Monday night, but even on Tuesday, there were still quite a lot of JR stoppages so they could clear the tracks. And actually, I heard from a friend that JR is going to be running from kind of at full capacity from Wednesday, but they're going to be stopping running at 9 p.m. at, I think, up until Thursday or Friday, just so they could work all night to really do a really good job of clearing the tracks. So it's still a mess here in Hokkaido, and definitely the Sapporo area. But that's always a major pain when JR stops for people. But I swear, the worst in Sapporo is when the highway closes. Oh, God, it's brutal. There's an elevated highway that runs from north to south and kind of sort of through the middle of Sapporo. And they closed that bad boy down for 3 full days. Yep. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it was totally closed. And when that happens, all the traffic that usually runs up on the highway, your trucks, your transports, your daily commuters, all of it, buses going to Chitose, all of it, they can't use that, obviously, so they have to go down onto the normal city streets, and it just clogs everything up badly. I mean, nobody can move. But what made it worse was with that storm, the normal city streets were much narrower than usual. Anything that was 3 lanes is down to 2 lanes. Anything 2 lanes is down to 1 lane, right? Getting through some neighborhoods, you have to be real careful because there's no room for 2 cars to go past each other, right? And well, just that day, that Tuesday, I had to go into work, and it took me 3.5 hours to drive 27 kilometers to work on Tuesday. I actually heard a lot of people saying that they had a 3-hour commute within Sapporo, which is a 3-hour commute within Sapporo. That is just insane. Again, a storm of that size in the city has real different ramifications than when it does in rural Ishikari, right? But while I was sitting in traffic, for 3.5 hours, I'll be honest, it wasn't stressful. It was just one of those things where there was just nothing you could do about it, and everybody was in the same boat. I mean, when Mother Nature decides to flex like that, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's part of life up here in Hokkaido, folks. So Monday, it kind of goes without saying, Monday all the schools were closed. They got the snow day. But Tuesday, everything was open again. Businesses, everything. And come hell or high snow, things were running. So us who live here in Hokkaido were very much inconvenienced. But man, I felt so bad for some tourists. I read some really sad stories. People had plans to travel to different places in Hokkaido, but were stuck wherever they were for a couple of days. They had hotel reservations, plans, things they wanted to do in different cities. They'd spent their money on this dream vacation, and then boom, things just ain't happening. So I felt real bad for a lot of tourists that were stuck in that kind of situation. But again, it's a part of Hokkaido life. Every year we get big storms. And I know I've said this a couple of times, but it really is just a way of life. You just deal with it. You get on. Usually things don't shut down because they're not quite that big. I mean, again, this was the biggest storm in 2 decades. So even when big storms hit, schools don't usually close and things. But man, for tourists on their kind of dream vacation, I guess that's just a real hard lesson to learn when, you're on vacation for the snow. That is what is so attractive about this place. But you find out pretty quickly how it can just turn on you. So it's a fact of dealing with these storms here. Yeah, they can be super fun and beautiful, but it's not always the case. So I mean, hey, If you were cooped up in a hotel for a couple of days, if you were cooped up in a place you didn't really want to spend a significant part of your vacation, I hope it didn't take too much away from your trip. I hope you still managed to enjoy yourself, right? But actually, during this storm, I was reading and I heard that Sapporo City even left some of the underground shopping malls called Pole Town, or was it some of the underground walkway between Sapporo Station and Odori Station? They left that downtown arcade. Downtown arcade, underground. They left the underground shopping arcade and walkway. They left that open all night. It usually gets locked up, but they left it open all night. So people who were stranded downtown could actually get shelter. And I read something close to like 400 people spent the night in underground Sapporo. Wow. I mean, that was really, really cool. And it was such a big storm, man. Well, getting back to me, one thing I couldn't believe. So my wife kind of finally convinced me to start getting proper rehabilitation sessions done on my arm, on my biker's elbow, which is still not healing, right? So I've been reluctant to go in and start it because I'm like, I can't not shovel, right? Am I kind of just throwing money away on rehabilitation right now when the next day I might have to get out and shovel 3 tons of snow, right? So I've been kind of putting it off and like honestly just not really seeing the point in starting it right now. But anyway, she finally convinced me. So I had my first rehabilitation session, with the physiotherapist. He did all the electricity and massage and stretching and all that kind of good stuff. And I got to say, it felt pretty good on Saturday. What happened? 24 hours later, I'm digging out one of the biggest snowfalls in 2 decades, and my arm is just screaming bloody murder at me halfway through. I'm like, you see? What was the point? But anyway, so I've got some more physio rehabilitation sessions booked up, so we'll see how it goes. But I was kind of laughing at that because it kind of proved my point of the uselessness of starting therapy for this in midwinter here in Hokkaido. There's nothing you can do. You have to shovel, right? And actually, folks, this storm wasn't just a Hokkaido thing. Many places all over Japan got hit really hard with this storm. And very, very unfortunately, I read there were 10 deaths down south. Man, it happens every year, doesn't it? Anywhere you're in a snow country and if first snowfall hits, this happens. Apparently 6 people died from medical emergencies while shoveling snow. That I remember that used to happen back in Canada quite a bit too, right? You get the first big snow dump of the year. You get people out shoveling, people that haven't done any exercise all year, and they have a massive heart attack. Well, apparently that happened a little bit further south in Honshu, here in Japan as well. So that's very unfortunate. I read another 4 people were killed from accidents while clearing snow off rooftops. Just brutal, absolutely brutal that storm actually turned into a killer storm. Unfortunately, it's like so many things that so many of us get up to. You have to respect your surroundings. If you're not very active, don't expect to go out and move several tons of snow in one session. It's very unfortunate that these things happened. It's a shame. But having said that, on the flip side of all that chaos and madness was the epic pow the skiers and snowboarders have been enjoying. Even just at the slopes close to Sapporo, people have been skiing and snowboarding in chest-deep powder. And I saw some of the reports of the snow in Niseko, and those places got hit with some really deep powder as well. So if you were already staying at a ski resort when all that hit, I guess you would be well stoked. If you had to travel anywhere, it was brutal. I mean, even 3 days after the event, that the highway being shut down. Like the highway going from north to south. So if you were going from North Sapporo, heading on the highway to Chitose in that direction, the highway was open again on Wednesday morning. But if you were kind of coming from South Sapporo, heading north to Otaru, as of Wednesday night, some of those stretches of highway were still closed. And that's it'll probably be 5 days until the highway's fully back to operational. So it shows you how big that storm was. Now, saying that it took so long, it took 5 days for the highway to open. The city's not even close to being back to fully drivable because there's just so much. Now that all might sound a bit weird to say, and I have heard some people complaining about how long it took to get the highway going, to get the roads cleared and all that jazz. But honestly, folks, there is really nothing to complain about. Sapporo is actually really good at clearing snow. This is one of the snowiest cities in the world, so they're ready for it. But even still, when storms of that size hit, again, there is nothing you can do but just chip away at it and do the best you can. Even with all the dump trucks, plows, and snow removal machines working at full tilt, just imagine the sheer tonnage of snow that has to be cleared. And, then they have to drive the snow to dump sites. Then they have to drive back, and all of that takes time. And, of course, I understand people's frustrations, but Sapporo actually really is very good at clearing up after a storm. And I also got to say, I was talking about the cars barely able to get past each other. I love the way people drive in neighborhoods where only one car can get through the street, which is most smaller neighborhoods, most residential neighborhoods right now. People are generally patient. People turn into driveways to let oncoming cars pass, and then they return the favor. Of course you get the old Yahoo, but for the most part, you have a kind of we're all in this together vibe. But having said that, I could definitely do without another 3.5 hour commute. Woo, man. But again, I wasn't stressed. I wasn't going out of my mind or anything like that. I had a whole bunch of podcasts downloaded that I was listening to. I was just going through my playlist of podcasts. And so again, once you realize you're not going anywhere fast, and once you realize your other coworkers are all in the same boat, the stress is kind of off, because even at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we still had students coming into high school. Again, the train situation, the bus situation, the city is just a mess. And, as I'm recording this, late Wednesday night, there's still parts of it that are very, very difficult to get around in. But hey, these things take time. And speaking of time, and by the way, before I go, folks, this past Wednesday, January 28th, was the anniversary of my arrival in Japan. And I kind of like to celebrate it every year. I know my wife has some cheese, crackers, and prosciutto waiting for me downstairs. But this year, January 28th, 2026, that makes it a full 27 years I have been here now. Woo! And I got to tell you, folks, I am looking forward to a lot more. So, as always, write in. Maybe we can set something up to get in for a ride together in 2026. And folks, please, you'll be doing me a huge favor if you subscribe to the show, leave a kind review, share episodes you like with your friends. Again, you'll be helping me out. Folks, have fun out there, and I'll talk to you next week. Love ya. Cycling Hokkaido!